Our current leaders in America don't seem to care much about U.S. citizens trapped in Afghanistan, and they don't seem to care much about the Afghans who are under a death sentence for helping the U.S. government. They certainly don't care about what the Taliban will do to women or to Christians. When it comes to the men, women, and children who are about to be oppressed, tortured, raped, and killed, the attitude of our leaders seems to be,
"You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs."
But there's one group trapped in Afghanistan that our leaders always claim to care about. One group they can't abandon. One group they can't ignore. I'm talking about the LGBTQIA2S plus community. I wanted to make sure I got that right because if you get one letter wrong, you're probably a Nazi. Business Insider reports. In tears, Ramin, the note says that the names of all of the gay men still in Afghanistan quoted in this article have been changed for their protection. For future reference, Business Insider, it would be way more effective if you changed all the names to Muhammad. In tears, Ramin said that his life has felt like a nightmare ever since Kabul fell to the Taliban on Sunday. "I just hope that somebody comes and wakes me up from this bad dream," the 37-year-old gay Afghan told Insider during a phone call. Ramin, who works for the United Nations, once enjoyed Afghanistan's vibrant, underground gay scene. Even though homosexuality was illegal, he said he felt relatively safe making his weekly visit to a clandestine karaoke bar in Kabul to sing and dance with other members of the country's hidden LGBTQ communities. "It was fantastic and so much fun," Ramin recalled. "If it makes you feel any better, Ramin, there won't be any more singing and dancing for anyone in Afghanistan, not just for gay men." But in days, Ramin's life, like so many gay Afghans, has been turned upside down. He now lives in constant fear and is too afraid to meet up with his boyfriend of 3 years. "If the Taliban finds out about us, they'll sentence us to death," Ramin said, crying. "I think we will have to stop our relationship." Like Ramin, 21-year-old student Ghulam also fears that he may not see his partner again. "If we get caught, the Taliban will kill us," he told Insider during a phone call. "Yes, they will. Even though I strongly suspect that all these Taliban jihadis are secretly gay. I mean, what do you think they were doing in those caves for the past 20 years? The Taliban is expected to implement a stringent interpretation of Sharia law. Is there any other interpretation of Sharia law? Which means homosexuality would be punishable by death. In July, German newspaper Bild reported that a judge from the radical Islamist group vowed to sentence gay men to death by stoning or by being crushed by a 9-foot wall. Ghulam is so terrified of being identified as gay and put to death that he has not left his home since the Taliban took over. "We cannot go out because we are just scared for our lives," he said. The student, who has dropped out of his university studies, said he sees no future in Afghanistan. "If I had permission to get a visa to go to another country, I would not stay here for another second," he said. What are you talking about, Ghulam? Everyone knows that Sharia is wonderful for everyone. Just ask any journalist, actor, or college professor here in America. Trust me, they know. And if all of reality says they're wrong, well, so much for reality. Saeed, a 36-year-old gay man from northern Afghanistan's Balkh province, told Insider via Facebook Messenger that he is also desperately seeking asylum from the new hardline Islamist regime. Life, he said, has dramatically changed for the worse in the space of a week. "Previously, I could meet face-to-face with a partner without feeling any shame about it," Saeed said. "Homosexual sex has technically been punishable by death in Afghanistan for decades, but according to the UK Country of Origin report on Afghanistan, it has not been applied since the end of the Taliban's first regime in 2001. Now Saeed fears that executions will become common, as was the case during the Taliban's previous period in power. "It's clear to me that as soon as the Taliban know that I am a gay man, they will kill me without even thinking about it, he said. Saeed told Insider he dreams of one day living authentically as a gay man in Canada. That's interesting. So, the presence of the U.S. and other nations in Afghanistan kept the Afghan administration from applying the death penalty to gay men. But now that the Taliban has taken over, the death penalty is back. This means that U.S. leaders basically handed over all gay Afghan men to the Taliban for execution. Hamid Zahar, 47, who was one of the first Afghan men to come out publicly, told Insider that while LGBTQ Afghans have always faced risks of violence and imprisonment at the hands of the authorities, those dangers pale in comparison to the brutality and intolerance of the Taliban. He left Afghanistan in 2001 and, after living in Turkey, was able to claim asylum in Canada in 2008. Zahar said that even under the U.S.-supported government, it was a very bad time for gay men. Before, they could be put in jail, or they could be beaten, he explained. But now, if the Taliban arrests them, they will kill them. But if you're young enough, they'll just dress you up like a girl and make you dance for them. Rainbow Railroad, a Canadian charity that helps LGBTQ people escape oppression in their home countries, released a statement urging governments to take in vulnerable Afghan refugees. Now is the time for governments to step up and support LGBTQI+ Afghan refugees, the charity said. Canada has plans to resettle more than 20,000 Afghans, prioritizing minorities, including female activists and individuals from LGBTQ communities. The U.S. is predicted to take in fewer than 10,000 refugees this year, the lowest number since 1975, and has accepted fewer than 500 refugees from Afghanistan in 2021, Insider previously reported. So, gay men in Afghanistan want to leave Afghanistan and live their lives in Canada or the US or Europe. Now I'm confused. According to everything I hear from politicians and journalists and educators and entertainers, Western nations are horribly intolerant, and Islam is the most tolerant ideology in the universe. Based on everything I hear from politicians and journalists and educators and entertainers, oppressed people should be fleeing Western nations and traveling to Muslim nations. But for some strange reason, no one wants to leave Western nations and travel to Muslim nations, not even Muslims, and Muslim nations are filled to the brim with people, especially Muslims who want to leave and travel to Canada or the US or Europe. If I didn't know better, which I don't, I might think that politicians and journalists and educators and entertainers are complete morons who've been conditioned to say the exact opposite of what we all know to be true. And now, due to the stupidity and arrogance and insanity of our leaders, the entire LGBTQ community of Afghanistan is under a death sentence. But by all means, LGBTQ community of the West, keep ignoring the ideology that calls for your extermination, and keep siding with the politicians and journalists who defend and promote and empower the ideology that calls for your extermination. Just keep focusing on wedding cakes and pronouns, as if that matters more than people being slaughtered in the name of Allah.
It just backfired on me. It just backfired on me. This is a power of religion. There's a reason to it. Yeah?